Monday, November 1, 2021, and just coming up on 1 year, not quite 1 year since I started my tiny little itty-bitty fledgling YouTube channel, Probable Cause, Dan Greider. You might have heard of me. Not quite a year I started this thing. I changed the name about a year ago. I've had the channel a long time, but I changed the name and started this Probable Cause theme. I wanted to stop and take a moment here on the 1st of November and say thank you for watching my videos. I don't really care if you subscribe or not. Actually, subscribing actually hurts me. What I'm looking for is minutes watched. Here's my screen graphic from YouTube Analytics that shows as of about 3 minutes ago. Here's my current status. You can see here the only metric that I care anything about is minutes watched. If you do this math here, 118,000 hours in the last 28 days converts over to about 7 million minutes watched on YouTube. Anytime you're above 1 million minutes watched every 28 days, you're doing good. You get above 3 and 4 million and you're cooking with grease. Now, at 7 million, 7, 8, this is Blanco Lirio territory here. Where you get up above 10 million minutes watched per month. It's doing good. So I want to say thank you. If you want to subscribe, you can. It's not that big of a deal. My subscription base has been growing leaps and bounds. Totally out of my control, totally against my wishes, but whatever it's doing it anyway, totally out of my control. I've had a lot of fun. Not quite 12 months in the YouTube business, even though I'm not in business. I don't monetize. I don't have anything to sell. You can't buy a ball cap and you can't send me money. So I've had a lot of fun with this because I get to say what I wanted to say. And I'm getting ready to say some stuff that you're not going to believe here because I've got the indictment right here. FAA, the 737 MAX, 2 airplanes down. The 737 MAX, the indictment handed down on October 14. I'm getting ready to talk about that in just a second. The reason for my YouTube growth, I believe, is because I read all your comments. I read every single one of them. I apologize I don't have time to respond to every single one of them, unless you want to hate me, and then I'll probably get involved a little bit there, mostly because I enjoy it. But the whole YouTube thing is an amazing thing. I think a lot of the growth minutes watched in the last 30 days or so has to do with my Tarzan series, November 6 Bravo Kilo, Remnant Fellowship Church. Boy, do I have a lot more to go. I've got a whole lot more footage to show. I've got people up there in Nashville right now shooting for me, shooting footage of Elizabeth and Michael and the Remnant people and all that stuff up there. It's going to be really good. I've got several more videos, and as promised, I've got my Probable Cause eventually is going to come out on 6 Bravo Kilo, the jet that crashed into Percy Priest Lake. Dan Greider's Probable Cause on that. It's not what you think, and I'm putting the final touches on putting that video up and on the air, and the final conclusion on that, what caused that jet to go down. So that's caused a whole bunch of minutes watched for me as well. Just got back from South Florida over the weekend. We don't get paid for going down there, but me and Toby went down there, much to the chagrin of the EAA chapter. We pulled out instruments and played music for those people and had a great time, hosted by the EAA chapter at Clearwater Air Park, Tampa Bay Aviation. Mark I can't think of his last name. FAA, Fast Team. If you went, you got Fast Team Wings credit for it. A great time. I can do about one of those a month, something like that. We don't get money for that. We go down there. In this case, they gave us a couple hotel rooms and a sandwich, which is totally cool, and we had a great time. Good turnout and excellent. I'm trying to do one of those a month for the GA community and get my speaking engagements just in line to keep on hitting this drum here as hard as I can. AQP for general aviation. So that's what that was. Thank you for the folks down there that attended and put that on. I got a helicopter ride out of the deal, which is totally cool. I'm really bad at flying helicopters. Bottom line is, I don't know how to fly a helicopter, and I proved that. If you want to see the video of it, the audio didn't come out too good, but you can see clearly in the video that I don't know what I'm doing down there flying helicopters. Couple other housekeeping things here. Jobs. The market's wide open right now. I've got a whole bunch of jet jobs for you youngsters. I'm looking for some young bucks, some young ladies that want to fly. Minimums are you need to have about 1,200 hours total time. Don't need an ATP, but 1,200 total time. You need some multi-engine time. I've got an excellent opportunity and connections with an excellent company that I highly recommend that's looking for jet entry-level pilots. Now, your best, there's no discrimination here, and I'm not the hiring person here, but I can tell you This is an entry-level deal here. You need to be able to be on the road and out flying a whole bunch. You need to have no dog, no girlfriend, no boyfriend, no family, no kids, no obligation, and be able to absolutely go out on the road and fly 80 hours a month and do a great job. Learn customer service, learn how to shoot an ILS, learn this jet equipment. They'll send you to school. It's a great opportunity. You'll spend a lot of days out on the road, but if you're young and you want this as a career, this is part of the school of hard knocks of getting into the big leagues and going. The faster you can get jet time, the faster you can get to where you want to go. You may need to take a year off and just pack your suitcase and stay on the road for a company like this. Fly a year or 2 years. But if you want information on that, send me an email and I'll forward you the information on how to get that process started. If you're a young person, not necessarily young, this is not an age discrimination thing, but I'm looking for people that have the ability to travel, be on the road, have an excellent attitude, and put up with it. It's good pay, good equipment, good people, a good operation, but you're going to fly. Boy, are you going to fly. So send me an email if you're interested in that, and let me know what you can do. All right, let's talk about this indictment here. What is an indictment? This thing came down here October 14, so just a couple weeks ago. This is an indictment from the 737 MAX. What is the 737 MAX? Well, if you remember, Boeing in June of 2011 got around a conference table just like this one. They sat down, they said, what can we do to compete with Airbus? Airbus was producing a new airplane that was also on the drawing board at the same time. So this Airbus is coming out. Boeing needed a new airplane that went up above their next gen 737 series. They actually needed a new power plant. They needed a more fuel efficient power plant, slightly different wing. And they started working around, they sat around the table and thought up this new thing. It's called the 737 MAX. Got designed in June, got hatched, got conceived in the summer of 2011. Why is that significant? Well, we'll get to that in a second, but here's the actual indictment for the guy. They just handed down the indictment. Mark Forkner was led in front of a judge October 14, stood in front of a judge with an orange jumpsuit on. His hands are in shackles, his feet are in shackles, and they're trying to slap a 100-year federal penitentiary sentence on one guy for the MAX 737, 2 fatal crashes. Now, it seems to me that this is a little bit harsh, and the whole thing is not making any sense, so I'm going to explain to you who's really at fault here. You got the entire U.S. government, and I want to show you the last page of this indictment. Who signed it? Look at all these federal agencies, trial attorneys, and all these people that signed this indictment against one guy claiming that it's his fault that both these planes crashed. I'm wanting to convince you. Let's look at this a different way. So here's the backstory on it. FAA is an administrative position. The administrator of the FAA is an appointed position. Well, what's the difference between being appointed and being qualified? You can be appointed to something and not be qualified, which is the case oftentimes at the FAA. The FAA administrator is often appointed by the President of the United States. It could be his golf buddy, his wife's best friend's husband, his dog catcher. It could be anybody that he owes a favor to. It could be anybody from some Senate subcommittee, something. In this case, here's the backstory on this. The current FAA administrator prior to the summer of 2011 was a guy named Randy Babbitt. Randy Babbitt was the acting FAA administrator at the time, an ex-Eastern guy. Randy Babbitt was actually a pilot, alcoholic pilot. He flew for Eastern, didn't do well there, and FAA picked him up, wanted him to be the administrator of the FAA. Guess what Randy does? Babbitt was arrested December 3, 2011 in Fairfax City, Virginia, and charged with driving under the influence of alcohol. Babbitt was about 9 miles from his Reston, Virginia home when an officer alleged that he drove on the wrong side of the road. Fairfax police issued a press release December 5 in accordance with the department policy of announcing arrests of public officials. Obama administration officials did not learn about the arrest until they saw the press release. The day the press release was published, Babbitt requested a leave of absence, which Transportation Secretary Ray LaHood granted. Michael Herta, Babbitt's deputy, immediately took Babbitt's responsibilities. Babbitt resigned as FAA administrator the next day, December 6. So it's a drunk acting as the FAA, getting caught for drunk driving that causes Michael Herta, who was at the time the deputy guy. Now, Babbitt was under an appointment. He got appointed. Now, Michael Herta also had a deputy job. He was appointed. Now, all of a sudden, he gets elevated because Randy Babbitt's in the tank for drunk driving. So, all of a sudden, Michael Herta wakes up and finds himself the acting administrator of the FAA. Well, what's wrong with that? I can tell you what's wrong with that. Michael Herta doesn't know the difference between a baseball and an airplane. Let's look at Michael Herta's credentials and qualifications here. From 2002 to 2009, Herta was group president of the Transportation Solutions Group at Affiliated Computer Services, a company later acquired by Xerox, specializing in business processes and information technology. On 6 December 2011, Herta became acting administrator of the FAA upon a resignation of Randy Babbitt. Keep that date in mind, 6 December of 2011. On March 27, 2012, President Barack Obama formally nominated him to serve as the next permanent administrator of the Federal Aviation Administration for a term of 5 years. The nomination was subsequently confirmed by the U.S. Senate on January 1, 2013. Now, here's where Herta was from. Herta was an FAA administrator from 2012 to 2018, and keep in mind the first delivery of the MAX 8 with the MCAS system on it was May of 2017. Who is Herta? Well, Herta received his bachelor's degree in political science from the University of California, Riverside. There's a red flag right there. And his master's in international relations from the Woodrow Wilson School of Public and International Affairs at Princeton University. There's a red flag. Herta was commissioner of New York City's Department of Ports. There's another red flag. International Trade and Commerce from 1986 to 89 before leaving to serve as executive director of the Port of San Francisco until 1993. Well, there's about 6 red flags right there. Let's look at the confirmation. Here's the nomination right here. Here's the document. I pulled it and read it. Boy, is this an eye-opener. In order to become the FAA administrator on an appointment from President Barack Obama, you got to stand in front of the Senate and answer questions and all this stuff. And they actually take this thing down like a deposition and put it in printed form so guys like me later on can read it. June 21, 2012. Here's when this thing was finally appointed. Now, he'd been acting as an FAA administrator for the previous year. Why is this important? It's because Boeing recognizes that Michael Herta is the acting administrator, about to be the real guy once he gets confirmed. There's nobody home at the FAA. Boeing can do whatever they want. Cut corners, cut costs. They don't have anybody knowledgeable at FAA. Who is Michael Herta appoint underneath him to oversee all these jobs and projects, manufacturing, the Boeing project, the new Boeing MCAS project, which at the time no one anywhere knew anything about MCAS or why MCAS would be needed or what it was, and I'll get into that in a second, exactly what MCAS is. June of 2012, here's the nomination of Michael Herta to be administrator of the Federal Aviation Administration. The opening remarks, holy cow, check this out. This is the opening statement of Honorable Maria Cantwell, U.S. Senator from Washington. And she says, blah, 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 blah. And when you came in front of this committee the first time, I recall there were many whispers about whether you had enough background in aviation. Maria is opening the thing by saying, man, over the past, everybody's been talking about the fact that you're about to be the FAA administrator and you don't know anything about aviation. There's been a lot of whispers about you're going to be the FAA administrator, but you don't know anything about airplanes, manufacturing, aviation, aircraft, systems, flight controls, engines, how airplanes work. You're the tree hugger from California and you're going to run the airplane business. How's this going to work? But she goes on to confirm it. Second, it is important, this is Maria still talking. Second, it is important that the FAA have a confirmed administrator as soon as possible. I know it's a presidential election year and I know the FAA administrator term is for 5 years, but not having an administrator sends the wrong message to the airline industry. Maria is saying not having an administrator sends the wrong message to the airline industry. Why? Because the airline industry can do whatever they want to do whenever there's nobody home. Having Michael Herta as the FAA administrator was equally good as not having one at all, because Michael doesn't know the front end of an airplane from the back. He doesn't know. All his people below him don't know. So you have set up a complete environment of Boeing running amok. They can do whatever they want to do because they know they're going to build their airplane, self-certify it, hand it off to the FAA to stamp it and approve it, and that's all that's going to happen, because the FAA doesn't have anybody on board that can tell whether it's good or not. There's nobody at FAA was even aware that the MCAS system was even on the airplane. Now, what is MCAS? Well, when they built the 737 MAX, it was different enough. The engines were placed slightly differently. It had some problems with pitch control under certain angles of attack and some things like that. They had to run a special computer system to run a jack screw in the tail. Remember, on these big airplanes, they don't just have elevators. The horizontal stabilizer in front of the elevator, it actually moves. Both of them are pitch control devices. On a jet, you can control the pitch with both elevator and horizontal stabilizer. The horizontal stabilizer moves. In all other conventional jets, horizontal stab is marked, indicated, and enunciated in the cockpit whenever it's moving. On the old MD-88 DC-9 series, whenever the stabilizer was moving, it would have a Betty voice in there that says stabilizer motion, stabilizer motion. It would tell you, and you had a set of brakes. You could disconnect the thing and you could stop it, but you always knew what position it was in, and you were always aware if it was moving. The MCAS system was thrown in there after the fact to automatically move the stabilizer without the pilot's knowledge or input or control or warning. There's no warning lights, there's no position indicator, there's no anything to tell you when the MCAS system sensed that it needed to move, and it started doing it magically all on its own. There's the bogus part of this thing. Boeing did this because Michael Herta was the FAA administrator. There's nobody home at the FAA. Boeing did this. Where's the real problem? Barack Obama is your real problem. He appointed an idiot to be the FAA administrator who is completely clueless about airplanes. The people that Michael Herta appointed underneath him were also golf buddies that didn't know about airplanes, and Boeing is aware of this. Is this Mark Forkner's problem, or is this Barack Obama's problem? I say this is Barack Obama. Most importantly, this is Michael Herta, who accepted a position that he was not qualified. When he goes through the act of accepting a position in aviation responsible for the lives of countless people in airlines, you better know what you're doing. Michael Herta accepted that position for money, pay, salary, benefits, insurance, and retirement. He accepted the position, and all of those were very good. Truth is, he didn't know what he was doing. He didn't know what he was doing, and he accepted that. There's your problem right there. If there's any guilt, this guilt lies directly in the relationship between Barack Obama and Michael Herta. Notice the footprint between the development of the 737 MAX and the MCAS system and Michael Herta's tenure. They match up almost identically. As soon as Michael Herta is gone, shortly after that, that's when the first 737 crash occurs. At that time, there was a different person running the show at Boeing, but there was plenty of opportunity to catch this. Michael Herta allowed that airplane to roll out the doors and be certified under his watch. There's your problem. Michael Herta was appointed. He was not qualified, and there's your problem. If there's any federal grand jury indictment ought to be handed down, it ought to go directly to Michael Herta. Mark Forkner is the subject of this indictment today, facing 100 years in the federal pen. Now think about this. The Boeing 737 MAX, do you think Mark Forkner snuck out there in the middle of the night with some duct tape and installed this thing and didn't tell anybody? No. Took like 1,200 Boeing employees in 6 years to develop this system, install it, test it, do everything. What happened to the other 1,199 that also knew about this system? Aren't they just as guilty for not speaking up? The FAA is saying that this airplane got done, certified, and sent out the door, and they didn't even know that the system was on the airplane. Are you kidding me? How is that possible? We don't even need a Federal Aviation Administration if you're going to be that stupid to not know that the airplane rolling out the hangar door for the first flight even has this system on it, and you're the Federal Aviation Administration. This is a joke. What a complete joke. Now here's In the nomination here, which was June of 2012, you also have to do an application. Now here's the crazy thing. When Michael Hurdy decided that he wanted to raise his hand and say, yeah, I'll do that job, he has to fill out an application. So I went ahead and pulled his application and read it and got a copy of it. It's all the standard stuff. Where do you live? What's your resume? All this kind of stuff. I got all that stuff. Here's a couple interesting questions in the actual application to become the FAA administrator. You can pull this up and take a look at it yourself. Question number 2 says, do you have any commitments or agreements, formal or informal, to maintain employment, affiliation, or practice with any business, association, or other organization during your appointment? If so, please explain. Now, Michael Hurdy uses a standard pat answer. He says, in connection with the nomination process, I have consulted with the Office of Government Ethics and the Department of Transportation's ethics official to identify potential conflicts of interest. Any potential conflicts of interest will be resolved in accordance with the terms of an ethics agreement that I have entered into with the department's designated agency ethics official and that has been provided to this committee. I am not aware of any other potential conflicts of interest. His answer says, his question is, are you involved in any conflicts of interest? And he says, I've entered into a contract that will eventually identify. Question number 3, indicate any investments, obligations, liabilities, or other relationships which could involve potential conflict of interest in the position to which you have been nominated. The answer is the exact same one. In connection with the nomination process, I have consulted with the Office of Government Ethics and Department of Transportation's ethics official to identify potential conflicts of interest. Any potential conflicts of interest will be, future tense, will be resolved in accordance with the terms of an ethics agreement that I've entered into in the department's designated. So there's number 3. It says indicate any conflicts of interest that you currently have, and he says I'll let you know someday in the future. Question number 4, describe any business relationship, dealing, or financial transactions you've had during the last 10 years, whether for yourself, on behalf of a client, or acting as an agent that could in any way constitute or result in a possible conflict of interest in the position to which you have been nominated. Answer, in connection with the nomination process. He uses the exact same typewritten by a lawyer answer for each one of these. I've consulted with and entered in the department's any potential conflicts of interest will be resolved in accordance. 5, describe any activity in the past 10 years in which you've been engaged for the purpose of directly or indirectly influencing the passage, defeat, or modification of any legislation or affecting the administration and execution of law or public policy. His answer for number 5 is none. Number 6, explain how you will resolve any potential conflict of interest, including any that may be disclosed by responses to the above items. Same answer. I have consulted with the Office of Government Ethics and the Department of Transportation's ethics official to identify potential conflicts of interest. Any potential conflicts of interest will be resolved in accordance. So the whole thing, this is your application. You're applying for the job. They're asking you point-blank questions. Tell us about your conflicts of interest. Tell us what they are. His answer is the same. I've entered into a contract, and I'll abide by my contract. Well, what are they? Why don't you just tell us what your conflicts of interest are, Michael? What are they? The question didn't say, are you going to enter into a contract with the Department of Ethics Foundation, whatever the thing is. It says, what are your conflicts of interest? Who have you been involved with? Who have you taken money from? Who have you given money to? Who are you in bed with? What are you doing here? What's your answer? Standard answer. In the future, I will. The whole thing is totally bogus here. So now it gets down to the actual indictment for this thing. Forkner allegedly withheld crucial information about the Boeing 737 MAX and deceived the FAA, showing blatant disregard for his responsibilities and the safety of airline customers and crews, said Assistant Director Calvin Shivers of the FBI. The FBI will continue to hold individuals like Forkner accountable for their fraudulent acts which undermine public safety. These guys, FBI, CIA, you got everybody. You got everybody involved in hanging Mark Forkner for the act of putting something on the airplane, which he didn't do. He simply didn't raise any whistles or red flags loud enough to tell FAA. His boss at Boeing pushed him, absolutely pushed him. Let's get this thing done. Let's get it on the airplane. Let's beat Airbus. Let's get this thing out the door. It's his management up above him that pushed Mark Forkner to do this. Mark simply did his job, and he did it well. Only problem was the MCAS system screwed up. Software was bad. They only had one AOA, which is an angle of attack indicator associated with the computer. So if that AOA vane fails in flight, that's what caused the two international 737 crashes. The total losses of both those airplanes, sum total, I can't even remember how many people combined on both of those 737 died, but they all died instantly at the same time when the same AOA vane failed after the first one. You would think that Boeing and the FAA would have known there's something wrong with this jet for this jet to fly that kind of a profile. Hey, Boeing, what is it that's on that airplane that we don't know about? But still at the same time, Boeing wouldn't tell. FAA didn't even have anybody on staff that was smart enough to figure out that there's got to be some kind of a system on this airplane causing this airplane to fly those kind of wild, violent pitch oscillation profiles right into the dirt. Nobody knows. Where's the problem here? The problem is in the concept of appointment versus qualification. You want a pilot to be qualified and have experience. Those are our FAA regulations. You got to be competent, qualified, experienced, with plenty of experience to do the job. And yet you're going to appoint somebody to be the administrator of the FAA that's a tree hugger from California. And he's going to run the show and he's going to make it safe. I don't see it. I don't see how it's possible. And I don't see how you can hang Mark Forkner and put shackles and send him to prison for 100 years because he's the guy that submitted the paperwork to the FAA and pushed for no additional training required. Everything's good. He only did what his boss told him to do. And yes, I'm fired up. Boy, this whole thing is just absolutely crazy. Good thing is right now, I'll make a clear distinction here. The one thing that we did do here, as soon as Steve Dixon, my old boss at Delta, Steve Dixon is now the FAA administrator. What's the first thing that Steve did when Steve became the administrator and we had the 737 MAX debacle going on? Steve jumps on a jet. He goes to Seattle. What's he say? I want to see the airplane. I want to fly the airplane. I want to see the system. I want to see this AOA vane. I want to fly the simulator. I want to see this thing. I want to get the whole thing figured out. I want to see your manuals. I want to see your pilot training. He could take one look at the program and tell you, here's what the problem is. If Steve Dixon had been the man in charge during Michael Herta's tenure, this would have never happened. Steve Dixon would have seen right through this just like I would have at first. You could take one look at this thing and understand this is a bad idea. An MCAS system is not a bad idea. It can work, but you got to have failure redundancy and failure backup so that the sensors are always comparing. You got to have comparator software to figure out which AOA is lying, which one's false. You got to have all that stuff done. Boeing didn't do any of that. FAA had no earthly idea that the system was even on there. Big shout out to Steve Dixon for jumping on the jet, going out there and figuring the thing out, figuring out exactly what they had. That's the first time that the FAA actually came to full understanding of what was actually on the Boeing 737 MAXs when Steve Dixon showed up on the scene and got it figured out. And now I think they're back flying and they've got some modifications to it, and I think they're back good to go. Totally bogus, though. My vote is to let Mark Forkner go. I want to see Michael Herta in jail. Actually, I'd like to see Hillary Clinton in jail. I'd like to see Mark Forkner released. I'd like to see Michael Herta in the same shackles serving the same indictment. Actually, I'd like to see Barack Obama in the same shackles serving the same indictment for appointing an idiot like Michael Herta to run the FAA. I got to get out of here before I run out of ink and airspace and gigs on this thing. But yes, I'm fired up. This is one more FAA thing. This stuff is critical. This is how your political system fails. What's the failure? What's the probable cause? This is a political failure. A complete political failure caused this 737 MAX debacle, no doubt about it. Nobody's willing to stand up and say that, but I am. Go ahead and sue me or shoot me or whatever you're going to do, but I'm going to go ahead and say it anyway. For my time, little Liberty Pledge on the YouTube channel, my name's Dan Groyd. I'm out of breath, and you're watching Probable Cause.